Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November Cybersecurity Forum. Pacific Northwest has been the site for a pilot program to help manufacturers comply with cybersecurity requirements. And based on the feedback we've received from this program, we have launched these monthly check-ins to provide relevant information and, most importantly, lots of time for your questions. We're covering content for both management and technical staff. So everyone is welcome and all questions are good questions. Today's program is supported by Impact Washington, Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership, TechHelp Idaho, Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center, in partnership with Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition and Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance. I'm going to introduce some of our partners on the line. I know, Damon, I saw you from Impact Washington. I don't know if Carroll, Michael McNutt is on the line as well. Wave, feel free to chat your contact information. I believe Dale King with PNAA is on the line. And Steve Yano and Ed Vasco with TechHelp Idaho. Am I missing anybody else? Feel free to unmute and say hi if you'd like.
Hi, Andrew Greeley from CTCI.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Well, and do everybody feel free to chat your contact information there. I'm Kate Canapo with Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition. Our mission is to support our members by bringing more defense and security contracts to the Pacific Northwest and supporting the supply chain for these industries. And we know cybersecurity is a very important part of a strong and resilient supply chain for the Department of Defense and beyond. So thank you all for being here today. If you're new to this program, I'm just going to share a little bit of an overview. You might have heard about CMMC or Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, and now CMMC 2.0, which has been recently released. This is still an evolving requirement that the Department of Defense has been really putting out there, but it's a security framework like any other framework, and it's all about protecting your business and being a good steward of the information that you have. You might hear, for our businesses on the line, you might hear about CMMC or CMMC 2.0, your SPURS score, NIST 800-171. There's a lot of acronyms out there, but this is all referencing a holistic cybersecurity program. So good job. You're here today. You're starting or you're continuing your cybersecurity journey. I'm going to pull up our agenda for today here. We are really excited to have Damon Nix with Impact Washington give us an update. Ed Vasco, who's the director of the Institute for Pervasive Cybersecurity at Boise State University, and with TechHelp Idaho, will give us some updates, and then we will have a panel. Jerry Leishman with CORTAC Group, John Stephens and Jonathan Wolff with Luminant Security, Matt Katzer with KAMIND, and Dave Miller with FNI will all be able to answer some questions for you. I'm going to pull up this slide. If you've been on other programs, you've seen this before, but I think it's really important with CMMC 2.0 to point out kind of the where you are on your cybersecurity journey. As a business, where are you at, and how can you get to the next level? I hope today will get you from confusion to understanding. CMMC 2.0 is new, but it's a lot of the same. It's probably a simplified version. So I look forward to all our panelists talking about that a little bit more. I am now going to invite Damon Nix on the line to talk a little bit about the programs that Impact Washington is bringing to the table here.
Thank you, Kate. We're so glad it's been an honor to be a sponsor of this program for the Cybersecurity Forums. It's been an amazing learning community, getting to hear from these experts who come every month, and also getting feedback and getting to hear from our manufacturing and industry partners who are on the journey to implementing cybersecurity. Along with our fellow MEP centers, Oregon MEP, TechHelp Idaho, which is out of Boise State, and the Alaska MEP, we certainly want to make sure that for those in industry that that your manufacturing extension partnership in your state is a great resource to get support for cybersecurity. We're committed to helping manufacturers across the country in every state grow and sustain and respond to challenges as they arise. And certainly we know that cybersecurity is a major challenge right now. You should also know that in each state, depending where you are, there may be certain types of resources to help you along that journey. I know in the state of Washington, we have some legacy grant programs that we think may apply. We also have a really cost-effective services, and state to state, that's a commitment for all the manufacturing extension partnerships, is that we've got great partners. Many of the experts who've been on these panels are partners with our state MEPs delivering the cybersecurity expertise. And so the MEPs are really a great community and a great place where you can register interest. You can see the link that's here. If you're interested in learning more about taking the next step in cybersecurity, not just big CMMC. I know that's a big challenge that's out there. I can't wait to hear the conversation today on CMMC2, but just fundamentals of cybersecurity. It's about security for your company. And so we know it's important to all manufacturers to protect their data, protect their information, protect their systems for their financial security, for their intellectual security. And so we at Impact Washington and all of the MEP centers, and I know all the partners that are on this call today, are very interested in providing support to help manufacturers succeed in that arena. So if you're interested in learning more, you can register your interest there. If you're from another state besides Washington, we'll certainly direct you to your local MEP center, make sure they get in touch with you. I also wanted to share about some great resources. This cybersecurity forum has been going on for a number of months. Hey, Kate, you can flip to the next slide. And those forums have been documented in history. We have them. They're on YouTube, so that's how you know it's real. So all the months we have from July forward, and including today's after our meeting, will be documented there or be available on YouTube, so that you can all go back and learn from the past forums that have occurred. So if we look back in July, we were talking about ransomware and security and some of the basics, fundamentals for implementing cybersecurity. Talked about culture of compliance, really looking at a company and the fact that it's not just about your systems, it's also about your people in your organization. September looked at some of the 10 best security practices for any company. And then last month talked about cybersecurity insurance, popular topic throughout. And you could see the list of experts who are there. Many of them are here today on our call as well. So encourage you to follow the links. Follow the link there to those recordings. They may be good learning for your organization, for yourself, but just another resource that's an output of this great program in partnership with PNDC, PNAA, and all the MEP centers in the Pacific Northwest. So Kate, that's all I have, but really looking forward to the conversation today.
Great. Thank you so much, David. And I apologize, I got to report my internet's cutting in and out. So I'm going to try to keep my remarks brief here. I'd now like to introduce Edward Vasko, Director of Institute for Pervasive Cybersecurity at Boise State, who's going to share some information with us. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much, Kate. Good morning, everybody. Let me go ahead and get my slides ready. And get this shared on out to everybody. Just to confirm, can you see my slides?
We can. We see that. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm Ed Vasko, as Kate mentioned. I'm with the Institute for Pervasive Cybersecurity at Boise State University. I'm a bit of a unicorn in the higher education and academic space. I actually have come into Boise State about 18 months ago after a 30-year career in the cybersecurity industry. So I have been on the front lines helping organizations around the country essentially secure their critical data and their critical assets and infrastructure from cyber adversaries. Along that line, I've also, like many small business owners here on the call, I've started, run, and operated 5 different cybersecurity companies, selling the last one to private equity in 2018. So coming into Boise State and starting the Institute, I have 4 key pillars of areas of growth, and I wanted to share that with this group so you're all aware of us as a resource regionally, and you can hopefully feel comfortable to reach out and learn about or work with us and collaborate. The first big item that we happen to have is around competency development. I'll talk to that a little bit more in a little bit more detail in terms of what my institute and TechHelp are doing for the MEP community throughout the region, in particular in Idaho. But competency development for our students is extremely important, where they're not just going out with knowledge and a degree, but they're actually getting real world hands-on experience, helping organizations with assessments, with remediation, with any type of security, cybersecurity related kinds of services. Along that same line, we're also very, very specifically focused around workforce development. I'll share some numbers with you. Unemployment right now and trying to find qualified workers across so many different industries is a huge problem, as we all know. But it's been doubly, if not triply so, the case in the cybersecurity industry, where for 30 years, we've had effectively what I call negative unemployment, meaning that the demand has far outstripped supply of qualified resources and qualified people, to the tune that for every 3 jobs, we're only able to fill 2. So some numbers to kind of consider. In the Idaho region, in Idaho State, we've got about 1,700 openings in cybersecurity that are going currently unfilled. And across the nation, we have about 450,000 positions that are going unfilled. So the Institute's very, very focused around workforce development. We also work with our faculty members and our partner institutes like TechHelp to conduct research and partnership, industry partnership and applied research, taking ideas and concepts and working to ensure that they actually do have applicability in your world. And then finally, and specifically what we're going to be talking about today is more advisory services and support services. So 4 key pillars. Please utilize us, reach out to us, irrespective of where you are. I'm happy to work with you, and want to be of assistance and help you on this journey around CMMC. Having lived through a significant number of compliance and regulatory waves that have hit different industries, CMMC is just one of many that have occurred throughout my 30-year career. And so there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of methodological approaches that can be brought forward to the manufacturing industry and to the DFARS space. And as we'll talk about here, and I'll pass over to the panel, there's continuous improvement, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as it relates to CMMC 1.0 to 2.0. So I also want to make certain that for those of you who have heard those numbers and have friends, family, children, nieces, nephews, to know, the workforce development numbers I gave you, the workforce need that we have across the country, please recognize that Boise State has a full-on cybersecurity curriculum stack. If you have people that are interested in cyber, again, have them reach out, because we have certificates all the way up through PhD. Our goal is to be helping the nation across this entire stack and with the Institute. So that's my kind of gratuitous plug for all the great things we're doing at Boise State. The other thing that I wanted to chat about is with TechHelp, we're taking a very distinct approach to helping our MEP community and offering up kind of a merged sense of both student workforce development and bringing in the necessary services and capabilities to help our MEP community to assess and gain a perspective of readiness, provide training and advisory and remediation and certification services downstream. We do this through a combination of qualified third parties that we have available, but also where applicable, bring our student interns that are part of the Institute and give them the opportunity to work with your organizations to get real world experience. And so what we've tried to do at TechHelp and the Institute have put together this kind of map to give you a perspective of the process and the journey to CMMC certification at a very high level perspective. You know, first and foremost, if you have not had a chance to really sit down and examine the readiness state of your environment, I highly encourage you to do so. You know, contact your local MEP provider, your regional provider. Again, if you're in Idaho or irrespective of where, please reach out. You know, as a community, we're working together very closely, but it's all about trying to understand the specifics, the specific gaps that your organization may have in terms of the types of controls, be those procedural controls and policy controls, documentation of what you do in your environment, or technical controls that may be needed to enhance how you're taking care of CUI or any other kinds of data. And then also what sort of people-based awareness and knowledge and training and cultural changes may be needed to bring about the association of cybersecurity and the big thing I try to emphasize, which is safety. You know, we think about our manufacturing floors and safety is a prevalent, continuous thing that we're thinking about. In the same sense, the key challenge we have around CMMC or any sort of cybersecurity implementation is essentially cyber safety. And so, you know, as I read through CMMC and the different requirements, that's what I always try to keep in mind, is that what I'm actually doing is I'm bringing about the same kind of safety capabilities and structures that I have on a manufacturing floor to my IT or my data environment. So understanding your readiness is the first key step. From there, we have a couple of different recommendations depending upon the way you want to approach your readiness. Your journey to certification. And that would be, you know, training and advisory, meaning coming in from a licensed training standpoint. And the Institute is a licensed training provider of the CMMC accrediting body. We're working through, and I can't tell you the number of conversations we've had as a community right now around 2.0 and the changed reflections and how we're all going to adjust to those things. But you know, in short, we have the capabilities, if need be, to come in with training and advisory services to help you gain and begin to implement that awareness and that cultural shift that may need to occur. The other side is remediation. So, you know, if you have a need for additional IT support, or if you have a need for a third-party partner, you know, that's where we can come in and also provide assistance in terms of, you know, utilizing student interns if need be, but also work with your third party and help guide and act as that trusted third-party person that's standing shoulder to shoulder with you, with other third-party providers, to ensure that what's implemented is effective, you know, from a cost perspective and from a thoroughness perspective, but also is going to have, it's pragmatic and it's going to have a lasting effect within your environment. And then the fourth step of this journey is really around certification. And the great part is, I would say, is that you know, there's a benefit to the shifting winds around CMMC 1.0 to 2.0, and that is that you know, compliance requirements and deadlines, you know, from a reporting perspective, do get shifted accordingly. And so while there is this very specific end state that we're tacking towards in our journey, the requirements of having to have those completed within a 1.0 timeframe are now being readjusted to 2.0 to deal with and adjust to the 2.0 structures. So I know many of you are here today specifically to talk and ask questions about 2.0, and certainly we're going to do everything we can across this conversation as well as the panel. But I will share with you the fun part, a bit of a funny, I hope a funny statement I said prior to the panel, prior to this session starting, which was, as we were talking about 2.0, I said, well, I'm going to pull the hot potato out of the oven, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to pass it right on over to the panel in the hopes that we get a lot of great conversation going on about this. Let me share with you this one key slide to kind of tee things up for future conversation. As many of you who have been talking about or been made aware of CMMC, you're probably thinking about and looking to the 1.0 model. The 1.0 model had effectively 5 different levels of requirements. This is the model that was produced and came out in September or so of last year, and from the DoD, and it had 5 very specific levels that accounted for an extended journey, is how I would look at it, of an organization to go through from a basic certification that had third-party requirements all the way up through a very advanced, very, very mature organizational perspective with a wide number of practices and processes in place, as well as a very, very detailed, thorough third-party assessment. As the DoD was listening and taking into account the reactions from the community as a whole, the decision was in March of this past year to put forward an announcement to say, give us your feedback. And I take this as a very, very good sign by the DoD that there's a willingness to listen to the community, and also take into account that small businesses within the community will find it very, very difficult and costly to try to move up this very, very advanced scale from level 1 to level 5. Again, having been through multiple waves of different kinds of compliance across different industries, it's always at the broadest base of the pyramid that the largest amount of compliance pain can occur. So, take, for example, healthcare privacy or retail credit card private security, same exact sort of challenges occurred when the first set of models came out. The small businesses were the greatest impacted. The great news is that the DoD heard that and came back out in, I think it was just recently, actually, in November, just a few weeks ago, actually. They came out with 2.0, and that's now the big change. And so what are the changes as they occur? Well, the first largest item is, the obvious one is that we've gone from 5 different levels to 3. The key aspect here also is that we're not necessarily requiring a third-party assessment at the most basic level. There is an opportunity to do an annual self-assessment, and in doing that, just keep in mind that there's potential compliance, there's potential insurance-oriented risks that may come into account, because effectively you're saying, if you're attesting to the quality of the controls across the 17 practices at a level 1, and something does happen, then your cyber insurance and your cyber, your liabilities may increase as a result. So just be aware of that counterbalance. The good part is that the annual self-assessment takes away some of the requirements to have a third party deeply involved. I would still highly encourage organizations to examine the readiness of your environment and to gain awareness of where your gaps happen to be. Because the thing that I've learned over my 30 years is that ignorance is no longer bliss when it comes to cybersecurity. and the types of again, corporate liabilities that your organizations could be exposed to, and contractual liabilities you could be exposed to if you simply claim, I didn't know. The requirements are there, they're documented, they're well structured. Are they required yet? No, that's still coming, but using a third party to get you some understanding of where you fit against those 17 practices and how you can accelerate your journey and cost effectively achieve your journey is extremely important. The good part there is that the annual self-assessment is essentially a cost savings to organizations now, in that there's not a need to bring a certified third party on in to do that assessment and attest to it. The other side is that in level 2, rather than it being annual third-party assessment, the great part is that right now CMMC 2.0 is calling for a triennial third-party assessment with the other 2 years, so a 3-year cycle, 1 year of which is certified by a third party. The other 2 can be self-assessments. So again, this is a listening opportunity and a reaction opportunity by DoD to essentially take the burden off of the community as a whole, that there's a need for annual assessments by a third party. And as you'll see, the number of practices and the number of control areas also decreases from 130 if I'm looking over at level 3 on 1.0 to level 2. It culls down the number of specific practice areas. But also, if you're on the 5-step journey of level 1 of CMMC Model 1, you were able to get to level 2 and feel comfortable, and then make that big push to level 3. In this particular case, you're going, it's a fairly significant uplift from a level 1 at 17 to a level 2 at 110. So just be aware of those kinds of impacts to your organization as you're moving upscale. I think I probably have set a bar for the panel to at least jump over, quickly skip over, I should say, and give them an opportunity to be able to talk in more depth around the requirements and the specificity of 2.0. The one thing I would caution is that 2.0 is so new. There are still significant amounts of determination and kind of conversation going on around what the impacts are. And so you anticipate that there will be continued updates and continued guidance coming from DoD, your MEP partners, and from organizations like TNDC. Certainly don't hesitate to please reach out if there is any sort of question you might happen to have, or guidance advisory that you'd like to engage with. Again, from our perspective, it's also an opportunity to bring in our students, our cybersecurity students, and give them opportunity for real world capabilities, real world development. And I'll stop there. I think I've consumed the time that I had been allotted. And certainly if there are any questions, please don't hesitate. I've got time, I think, for maybe 1 or 2. So I can scroll through chat, and I will stop sharing so that we get a chance to kind of see this wonderful, well-extended Brady Bunch gallery of Zoom windows. So. Kate,
Wonderful.
or anybody else, was there one that stands out or that we've seen repeated, rather than trying to scroll through all of the questions?
Yeah, I think there's a few questions that we'll get the panel's input on, specific on technology, but I'd really like to kind of double down on what you said about cyber safety. And I think that is such a good way of incorporating, especially for manufacturers that have that as so much of their work that they do. Do you want to comment a little bit about how maybe you've worked with companies to implement that as part of their overall safety and risk management program?
Yeah. So no, it's a great question, and again, I can't emphasize enough this commonality within manufacturing culture, which is floor safety. and your employees, there's awareness, there's procedures, you've got a strong structured manual, I'm sure all of you do, in terms of if something does happen, even down to the slightest scratch on the manufacturing floor that a person might have. What's the process both from a operational perspective as well as from a human resource perspective? If it's something that's, if something unfortunate happens, how does workforce, workplace insurance and worker support come into play? So if you translate and take a look at those kinds of processes and move them into more of a cyber safety orientation, there's some cultural awareness that your teams already have around safety. Because it is such a prevailing piece of your respective cultures, that changing the terminology to cyber safety and thinking about the types of data that you have inside your environment. And also the other key recommendation I always like to make is that while CMMC is certainly focused around any type of any sort of controlled unclassified information or any other sort of contractual information that you may be receiving from your vendors or your partners in your supply chain, there is an opportunity to actually extend out the type of cyber safety around employee information, and making certain that your employees recognize the fact that your IT systems, the people that are running your IT environments, the people that are using your IT environments, so your back office staff, your contract staff, your HR staff, all of them are aware of the fact that they also have a requirement to treat all data inside your organization with the same level of safety that those employees treat the manufacturing floor. So a couple of key things. You probably already have a communication plan in place around plant safety or floor safety. There's an opportunity to leverage that same exact process, but bring into play the requirements around cyber safety. So, ensuring that if there is something that has CUI in it, to notify if there's any sort of egregious or inadvertent disclosure of that kind of information, or if there's any sort of lack of controls. Those controls could be everything from encryption to somebody's doing an extract of contract data that they shouldn't. Make certain that there's an awareness of what to do and what not to do, those basic elements. The other side of that is certainly appointing, as you probably do within your floors, in your organizations, you have a safety champion, somebody who's specifically kind of the key person that's championing the aspect of floor safety and quality within your organizations. I would take the same kind of an approach from a CMMC or general data safety standpoint. Make sure that there's either one or multiple people. Typically, I also recommend, if you're running multiple shifts, try to make it one per shift at a minimum, depending upon the size of your organization. But identify and have that one person, not within IT. That's the other thing I would recommend, is not to have that be the IT person. Instead, I would look to try to engage somebody who is within your back office, or who is specifically working within the data environment, so that there's awareness. There's somebody who's continually communicating the need to have this cyber safety, and also that same person could be the point of contact if there is a need for reporting of inadvertent or potential malicious activity that may be going on, so that there's somebody who can focus efforts, bring the organization around to address the particular issue. So I think if you start with those kinds of aspects, you'll drive a long way very, very quickly without having to put a lot of time and effort into or a lot of gas into the tank, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Bake cybersecurity into your processes. I love it.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well,
Well, thank you, everybody. Kate, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I do appreciate it. I've given Kate a PDF of my slides. I'm sure she'll share that out. And certainly if there are any questions you might happen to have or opportunities for us to collaborate and talk through your challenges, please reach out. Glad to help.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us and all the work you do there at Boise State University, as well as TechHelp Idaho. So please, if you're able to stay on the line, I'm going to invite our panelists also to join us now here and comment. I know we've had a very active chat going on, a few questions here. Hopefully we can all see my screen now. I'm going to invite, actually, why don't we go around? I'll have everybody kind of give a little thoughts on CMMC 2.0 since that's new, and then we'll jump into some of the audience questions. I pulled up all our panelists here. Thank you all for being here today. Matt Katzer, did you want to comment a little bit about CMMC 2.0 and kind of what you're seeing that impacting your clients?
Yeah, I mean, this is a CMMC 2.0 is really interesting from a standpoint. What they've done is anyone should really internalize that you're still going to have to do the NIST 800 171 if you're level 1 doing the 17 controls. If you're doing the old level 2, the old level 3, which is now the level 2, they basically removed what we called in the CMC space the Delta 20. But I think mentally what you have to internalize that, and Edward mentioned this as well, is cybersecurity nowadays is a continuous process. There's a continuous process improvement, just like any other manufacturing process. And what CMC was trying to do in version 1, and I'm sure we'll see a version 2. Whatever is going to have certain same type of concepts, but it's really trying to bake it into it. It's not just a set it and forget it like it used to do in the old days. Those days are gone. It's a continuous process. And I will encourage everyone when they look at CMC, one of the changes was they moved it from a, when you actually look at Christian doctrine and you look at the ability for white, whistleblower act, they basically made it now the responsibility of the C-level staff to sign off. So now there's personal responsibility throughout the organization. So you have to keep in mind that you are going to be end up doing, the question is now you have doing it at more reasonable pace. And I think the move to do the attestation for level 1 is really the right thing to do to help manufacturers, but it is a continuous process. You need to adopt it into everything you do. Great,
thank you so much. And Jerry Leishman, are you on the line as well? I'm glad you make it. I thought you were not going to be able to make it, so I will definitely have you comment. Jerry is actually a member of the CMMC accreditation body, so might have some more input on this.
Yeah, it's nice to be here, Kate. Sorry I was a little late getting here, but absolutely, the CMMC level 1 has been difficult to conceptualize from a cost and timing standpoint, primarily with a 100% compliance through a third-party audit or assessment. And given that we only have 5 C3POs today and trying to assess and audit 300,000, it was going to be a long road and where nobody was ever going to make progress. So CMMC 2.0 has really taken a step back, like Matt just mentioned, is that it's making it more reasonable and it's breaking it down into chunks so we can make progress at the level 1s where the majority of our folks are in the supply chain, but still hold organizations accountable. But the benefit is they know that 100% compliance is going to eliminate 75% of the supply chain today if they held that particular requirement in hack and today, but we know that wouldn't work from the supply chain. So by reintroducing the plan of action and milestones, which is basically giving you some additional time to work through some open items, even after you win the contract award, is reasonable. They did put caveats on these things that the high impact control areas like access control, backups, those are not going to get POAMs. So there will be a set of requirements that you will have to meet, even though they provide POAMs for less important things. The other interesting part of CMMC 2.0 is, it actually is accelerating the impact on all 300,000 suppliers. Originally, it was based on a contract award, and that could be anywhere from 1 to 5 years out. But when you move to doing a self-assessment and reporting it by a senior officer into the SPURS system, as soon as the legislation that's going through the rulemaking process, could be as early as 9 months, everybody will be impacted by that, and they will have to report their current scores for a FAR for the level ones and a NIST 171 for a level 2. It's kind of a big bang approach, which is really going to accelerate a lot of that investments that smalls are going to need to make. However, it won't be third-party attestation, so they eliminate, say, 10,000 for an audit. But now they're holding, like Matt said, senior levels accountable and applying the False Claims Act, which is a pretty nasty thing if you become a poster child there. So shifting that risk back over to industry, which I think is a good thing, holding industry leaders accountable and to move the ball forward immediately instead of waiting for 5 years when your contract comes due. So my main message is you can't wait. It's actually coming faster than it used to be. You do have some flexibility with the POAMs. The other interesting thing is they've talked about incentives. So there was a conversation yesterday by the DoD PMO around CMMC, which is now with the supply chain. They're looking at 2 ways to incent suppliers to move forward here as well. One is to give them a higher profit margin on the contracts they win. So it gives them incentive if they're CMMC level 1 or level 2 compliant. And secondly, before the contracts come up, they're going to look at the SPURS scores for those organizations, and that'll be a consideration in issuing awards starting as soon as the rulemaking's done. So if you have a high SPRS score because you're doing well, you're going to win more contracts until your CMMC contracts start showing up. So they're incenting industry to actually move forward with this and not wait. So those were just a couple of the interesting pieces that are changing with the CMMC 2.0 model to make it more practical and give some more incentives for early adopters to move forward and win new business, protect the supply chain while laggards are still going to be caught flat-footed when they don't have a good SPRS score and they lose contracts today or within 9 months. So those are my key takeaways that we really need to understand as suppliers, besides all the other changing of the models and losing the Delta 20, and it all really didn't slow the process down. It simplified it, but it accelerated it for compliance efficiencies from my perspective. So that's a little bit of thoughts, Kate.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to welcome everybody to chat their questions in. We did have a question earlier that I think has put some questions or there's a lot of conversation in chat here, but I wanted to invite, is it Bruce Carroll on the line if you wanted to clarify a little bit more about a question about cloud-based solutions?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I don't have video capability today. It's Carol Bruce. I'm with.
I'm sorry. Yes, I wasn't
okay.
sure what order to put that in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with AvCorp Industries. We're based out of the Pacific Northwest. Our headquarters is in British Columbia, Canada. But we have operations here in British Columbia, as well as California and Ontario. And my question was really around the fact that historically we've had our ITAR and CUI data locked down in separate solutions at each of our sites. And part of that reason is, well, it predates CMMC and even NIST, but it's difficult right now as we're looking at having a centralized, cloud-based solution. It's so easy to lock down stuff on the US side of the border for our US defense contracts, but what do you do when there's Canadian operations? So my question was really to the group in case anyone wanted to reach out who might be in the same boat of cross-border, having to secure data that might span in the cloud for organizations that do business and fulfill contracts across the border.
Right, great. And Dave Miller with FNI, I know you had some comments on that might be good to hear for everyone. Dave, you're on mute if you're talking.
I sound so much better on mute. So, so the foundation, if you're doing cross-border work that is U.S. DoD related, is ITAR, and that has specific requirements as to who can access the data, and there's ways to mitigate those. One is having a facility that is ITAR compliant, a cloud facility that is ITAR compliant. And the other is just the exchange of data, how you're receiving and transmitting that. And how is that encrypted? And then how is it, who is receiving it and how you have access control over that. So there's a number of different approaches to that. We've seen using VDI, virtual digital interface, that is secure, going directly to the cloud, that the cloud is ITAR compliant, is being a successful way to do that.
Great. And I'm going to invite John Stephens or Jonathan Wolff with Luminant to comment on that as well.
Sure. So, we're working with a company currently because we have operations both in Canada and the US, and it definitely becomes tricky. Not only do you have to choose the right technical solution and the right configuration, but, there's a lot of ambiguity in terms of who you're getting the data from. And so, for example, we have a Canadian customer who's working on their CMMC piece because they're working for US defense contracts, but they also have defense contracts for their Canadian customers. And so we're trying to rectify all of those competing interests and find out what the best solution is. And I think you're exactly right. A lot of businesses to this date have kind of stayed on-prem to avoid that ambiguity in that gray area. And as we move forward, I'm hoping that there will be more guidance provided. As we're talking to these Canadian companies and working with US companies, it's increasingly common to have multiple nations and geographies involved. And so, as a matter of fact, the same client has operations in Europe and they're trying to rectify all of that. It's becoming increasingly difficult. So I don't know that that's so much of an answer as a commiseration, but I'm hoping that we will start to see additional guidance come out either through the DoD or the CMMC AB in regard to what is suitable and appropriate. One of the things that with CMMC 2.0, they're also talking about providing guidance on what is the equivalent for FedRAMP moderate solutions that aren't validated. And, that's an outstanding issue that I think everybody's kind of waiting to hear. So I'm hopeful that with time, more of that guidance and decision-making will come down so that it doesn't feel like we're the blindfolded leading the blind.
Awesome. Yeah, John, you mentioned FedRAMP. Can you just give a quick explanation for those on the line that might not know about that?
Sure. So with CMMC 1.0, it required that the cloud service providers be FedRAMP moderate baseline. They met those requirements. And so when you talk about that, it not only means that they had to meet all of the security requirements, but they had to have gone through the validation process. And that was causing a lot of consternation for folks. With CMMC 2.0, they've said that there's going to be some type of equivalency that folks can validate, so if you don't have a validated solution, there's some path to utilize a cloud service provider, even if they're not validated, but they haven't issued all of that guidance. And so the FedRAMP program is just a validation of the security controls to include the encryption and so forth, that it meets a standard. And so that's where, there's validated, and then there's well, what is the equivalent? And supposedly they're going to issue some of that guidance. But, all of this comes down to, again, for US contractors, the interim rule and DFARS, you're already supposed to be doing the NIST 800-171 controls. So I think it was Jerry who mentioned earlier, this shouldn't be a huge lift that you're just starting. It should already be in place. So the time is now.
Yeah. I just want to add to that. So FedRAMP is are products and services that are offered directly to the government. And there's a FedRAMP Marketplace. So if you are building solutions for your organization, you should take a look at that, because those will be generally the list of approved suppliers like Microsoft, GCC Hive for communications, Azure Gov, AWS Gov. Those are approved solutions that, once the reciprocity comes out, that was just discussed, we'll get clarity. But if you have to make decisions today, those are the ones you want to go to. If you don't see a provider there, you need to ask them, are you NIST 800-171 sufficient? Because if you put your data there and suddenly you do get an audit or you self-attest and they are not meeting the requirements, then suddenly you're not meeting the requirements because they're really a subcontractor to you hosting your data. So it's a really important decision about who you select as your providers for cloud services. If you're doing everything on premise, then it doesn't matter. You just have to buy the servers, run the software, isolate it, and then have the teams to make sure it's patched. But that's really an expensive approach nowadays. And I think the person that asked the question realizes that you have to do it 6 different times for each site. But if you aggregated that into, say, a Azure Gov in the US and an enclave, you can move all the data up there and put VDI or access controls around that to secure the data. So you do it in one place and transfer that risk to Microsoft to manage that. And then you use policy and process to ensure that people aren't, doing spillage work. But again, there's risks to doing that, but it has to be managed through the organization. So there's a fine line. As long as the data is protected in a sufficient way through policy, process, and technology, you should be able to pass your audit. Now, some are going to be more expensive approaches than others. We worked with a company in Canada, $8 billion metal fabricator, and they had contracts with US sites and a couple out of the Canadian sites. We took all their data out of their manufacturing facilities, out of their closets, and moved it all into Azure Gov and put the appropriate protections on it to secure that data, which met a lot of the NIST 800-171 requirements around data protection, 2-factor authentication. And then they only allow people that need to know access into those environments to store and get the technical drawings so they can manufacture something, for example. So that was one approach that we took for a Canadian client.
To add to that, and excellent thoughts here. The looking at FedRAMP by itself, FedRAMP compliance does not necessarily meet all of ITAR compliance, specifically due to the requirement of ITAR to have US persons, and FedRAMP doesn't require that necessarily. And so Azure.gov does meet ITAR compliance. And that is one specific solution that does. So just FedRAMP in general, if there is international communication happening, may not be enough.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take down the slide so we can all see each other here and invite, does any of our audience have any questions they'd like to unmute and ask of our speakers? I know one that comes up quite a bit. We're talking about CMMC 2.0 or CMMC. There are lots of ways that people are being asked about their security, and a lot of it comes through the supply chain, through the SPURS scores or other cybersecurity, big stacks of paper you need to fill out about your cybersecurity. I'm wondering if we could have some comments on those different ways. I think the SPURS score is the most common one that we're hearing right now from people in the supply chain, whether it be the defense supply chain, the aerospace supply chain, kind of how you are able to attest to your cybersecurity through those other methods when it's not necessarily CMMC. Matt, do you have some comments on that?
Well, I think when you're talking about everything is there's a core, and the core that we're always talking about is NIST 800-171. That's kind of the basis. And when you get right down to it, the 17 controls, I mean, if you didn't have NIST 800-171, you should be doing those 17 controls anyway. I mean, we do a lot of security deployments and everything else, and we have in our security program, we're sort of like in, Dave, we have in terms of our boutique cybersecurity type activities, but it's basically our fundamental security model we have for all clients, commercial or those are in the defense industrial sector. It's basically, it's the 17 controls in NIST 800-171. And we actually have commercial customers that's what we do with everything. And if they don't meet them, we actually have them basically sign off not doing certain type of controls. But I think it's really, there's a mindset change you have to do because, and it really comes down to business in general. Today's business, our business value is our digital assets. And if you look the way your business, a manufacturing process or anything you do, your intellectual property, your trade secrets, those are all digital assets. You have to protect them because that makes you viable as an entity. And you have to put the necessary pieces on them. And it's not just good enough to have that lock on the door. You need to put the necessary pieces. But also, as you go through, especially with this pandemic, it's gone through COVID, we have a lot of remote working place and everything else. We developed the same attitude of trust but verify. And you're doing the same thing. So when you look at CMMC, when you look at NIST 800-171 and cybersecurity in general, we're going to a trust but verify mode for everything that we do. And for business owners, this is how you protect and basically keep value of your company. And that's what you're trying to do, because without your digital assets, and if you lose those to anyone, you basically are giving up your company for free.
One thing to add to that, I think I see Rick's on here about cyber insurance. We've been talking a little bit about how we can help organizations get lower premiums and expand their scope of coverage, because ransomware is rampant and it's growing. And a lot of my colleagues are saying there's a lot of bad variants still coming that are affecting all industries. And you're talking to Rick, it was really great to understand that if you are being proactive with your cyber hygiene, it does get you lower premiums, which means it's a return on your investment, not only of your brand and you're protecting your customers' IP, but even paying for cyber insurance in case something does happen. And most likely it will. The question is when. So I think cyber insurance is another part of how you defend against the security attacks. You're never going to be 100% secure because the bad guys are always 3 years ahead of us, but at least you've got protection that allows you to maintain your business operations and brand.
Thanks, Jerry.
That's a great point. Among our client base, we're finding that some customers, Jerry referenced enjoying lower premiums, but in fact, in some cases, clients aren't getting insurance if they don't have a certain level of cyber hygiene. So, not only is it about getting a return on the investment for being able to get cyber insurance more affordable, but we're actually seeing some of them locked out when they're not doing that basic stuff.
Great, thank you.
It's all about risk management, right? Same way the DoD is not going to give you a contract if you've got a minus 200 score in your SPURS, right? They're going, you're way too risky to handle my data. I'm moving on. I'm moving past you. And insurance companies feel the same way. So if you don't do this stuff, you're going to get impacted in many different ways.
Right. Again, call if anybody wants to unmute. We've got some great minds on the line here in our panel, so please feel free to ask your questions.
Well, one thing I can add, also been talking with Rick, there is a possibility down the road of having some of this compliance reporting provided to underwriters, and thus directly reduce the cost of insurance. And so that is an avenue that has potential in the future. I haven't seen it officially shake out yet, but definitely there's been some discussions about that, and Rick and I have been party to that.
Right.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one thing is that as you talk about cyber insurance and you talk about cybersecurity in general, you're seeing a big push across everywhere, all industries. there's going to be a base of a standard that if you want to do business in this country, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to have to meet. Because then you're going to see requirements at the state level for commercial products, non-DoD. And as you've seen the shakeout of what's going on in California on the CCPA in version 2, what's going on in Arizona, and the SHIELD Act in New York, which is a kind of a variant of NIST 835, you know, you're looking at CMC 171, the 17 controls are pretty much turning into what you're going to have required across any business you do, any entity you do business with. And the part of this is going to come down to there's liability, and businesses are going to have, when you look at cyber insurance liability, it's like, okay, if your provider you're doing business with, do they meet the same type of security controls? Do their providers do the things? Are they doing things? Where's the risk in the chain? Because it's everything. It's not just DoD, it's everything. And we need to internalize, we have to change how we do business. And I'm glad the CMC, I'm glad there was a change to make you could attest in level 1, so it makes it much more straightforward approach. But this is something that we all have to do because it's how we protect our business.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, since we're talking about cybersecurity and breaches, the Department of Justice, probably most of you have seen, they put out the Civil Fraud Initiative back in October. That says if you are breached, you're supposed to notify the federal government. It doesn't say that you have to be a DoD supplier. You could be a commercial company, because it's in the best interest of safety of the United States of America. So they're expanding, the federal government is expanding its reach across every organization that's US based or that does work for the US to make sure that if you are involved with cybersecurity breaches, that they know. I mean, there's also some concern there. If you tell the DoD and you weren't secure and they come back and whack you, well, that makes you not want to let them know. But in the best interest of public safety, they're pushing that civil fraud initiative forward, which also puts accountability on your firms that if you don't report, that you are breaking the Department of Justice requirements, which also leads to some nasty fines or changes there. That you don't want to be part of. The other part of that is it's even a little more scary is that if you do pay a ransom and you don't check with the OFAC office at the US, I think it's the Department of Treasury, it says you can't pay people outside of our country any US dollars for anything. You've suddenly paid a ransomware to a person that's on that list, suddenly you've just committed a fraud, which means you're doing, or not fraud, but a felony on behalf of the US country. So a lot of different things going on around every company. And it comes back to, it's raising the bar about how to manage your cybersecurity and how to report for ransomware. So the US government can go and attack the problem holistically instead of a whack-a-mole. And I think the other thing that you might see is in the CMMC 2.0 changes with 32 CFR and 48 CFR, it's moving from just a DoD set of requirements to more of a federal government set of requirements. So we're seeing, the government listening to the industry. Hey, we just want one industry standard that we can align to. I don't care if it's DOE, DOD, DHS. Give me one, then I can meet it, and then it'd be cost effective. And then that meets that cyber bar of the cost of doing business in kind of the current state. So all of those things are all working together. That's going to mean every company is going to have to raise their game, not only from brand, from compliance and security, but just even outside of their industries. It's a government issue around public safety now and economic advantages. Because if you can imagine it, if they disrupt a ransomware 4 or 5 different supply chains at once, we would see a huge disruption in the economic space. Just look at what's going on in the supply chain today and what happened with COVID. If you combine those, can you imagine the impact to our daily lives in terms of trying to get product and services? It would be a huge issue for this country when that happens. So that's my bigger picture about what they're trying to solve.
Awesome. Thank you. Really, really good information. I know we talked about a lot of why we need to be cybersecurity, have this cybersecurity program and some of those. Does anybody have any specific questions on how with their organization? And I will say all questions are good questions. If you're just getting started, don't be shy. Definitely ask. And I will encourage all our panelists here today to check their contact information so that people can follow up with any specific questions that they have. I know you all are very generous with your time and getting people started in this process, but I'm going to see if we
I
have
have a question. I've got a
Yeah.
question. It's for Jerry, and it's probably a little esoteric, but Jerry, I'm sure you're aware that the software chief for the Pentagon recently quit in protest. And I have this really good friend who is specializing in ethics and AI. He's a autistic, 180 IQ, autodidactic memory, and he gets me on the phone, could talk for 3 hours about what's happening and where we're going.
Yeah.
And he is scared to death about what this guy said, this guy who quit, about how the Chinese are years ahead of us in AI and they are preparing cyber warfare and getting ready to attack us. Is he a nutsy conspiracy theorist guy? I mean, where is the board and all you folks that are big thinking on this? What's your position on this guy quitting and what he's saying and what we should be? Should we be calling our senators and telling them to invest more in AI-driven cyber warfare?
I think, I don't have all the details and I haven't read the particular article or LinkedIn post that this gentleman said, but looking at, how we used to have physical wars where we could shoot missiles back and forth. It was kind of a Cold War, then it turned into a Cold War, say you shoot yours, I'll shoot mine. Kind of stopped a lot of that. I think we're in a Cold War for cyber warfare right now. US has already, infiltrated every probably country and, for intelligence purposes, and every other country's probably integrated into our supply chain. So it's probably a back and forth, kind of a Cold War. That's my gut. That's why I kind of said if there's a collaborative or organized supply chain attack across the US, it can be very disruptive for all of us, down to our own personal lives, which you've seen with Colonial Pipeline, with gas, JBS, with meat production. I mean, that stuff's touching us personally. And if some nefarious actors, maybe nation states, maybe just global criminals, do something that really distracts the US and then they go after their primary target, I could see those sorts of things happening. And they could be happening today. It's just not in the news. So I would say, the thing is possible. The Chinese have been investing more, but I do think the U.S. federal government has realized that they need to do more cyber security investment because of the ransomware and the nation state stealing $1 trillion worth of IP last year. And I think the way I can validate that, there are over 348 different cybersecurity statements and all the ongoing U.S. regulation, and just even recently in the infrastructure bill. There's a lot of money put into energy and transportation for cybersecurity, which I know Damon's probably thinking about, hey, let's take a look at that. And you should. But there is a lot of money that's going to be flowing through the government down to the MEPs and the PTACs around this country to help secure the supply chains. And I don't think it's just going to be defense. I think it'll be every supplier supporting the federal government, which is what I expect. And based on the legislation rolling out in the next 12 to 18 months, I think they see it, but are they moving fast enough? Probably not. So that's kind of my perception.
Yeah.
Well, I can add to that in that I was just down in San Diego at a naval conference, NDIA naval conference, and they, dealing with specific programs when it comes to the Navy and how it is facing against China. A good part of that cybersecurity related. And the Navy is concerned. In fact, they see the United States as being behind when it comes to a lot of the technology, warfighting technology. And cybersecurity at the warfighting level, we supposedly have a slight edge, but that edge is diminishing. So there is a major push right now at the Navy and with other armed forces, Space Force as a new one, about protecting U.S. assets and all across the board. And Jerry, I can only just follow on with what you're saying, is that unilaterally across all government agencies, there seems to be a greater concern about the theft of data and the potential destruction that can happen. Colonial Pipeline being one that was just a nefarious acting group that pulled a plug when they shouldn't have, so to speak. And they kind of went, oops, we're only going to charge $5 million instead of $50 million. But folks on the panel can well understand this. What would happen if there was a genuine attack, if they were serious about doing damage instead of just accidentally pulling the wrong plug, hypothetically?
Yeah.
So there's a major concern out there right now that we're seeing, at least in the defense agencies. And the theft, $1 trillion worth of IP stolen. I mean, that's the tip of the iceberg. Virtually every government employee has had their identification stolen. There's extortion potential there. I mean, the list goes on. So it's a scary world.
Yeah, awesome. No, and I think it's so important that we all understand that it is kind of the weakest link within a supply chain that can be that breach. So even those small businesses on the line today have a responsibility in this whole ecosystem of cybersecurity, whether they're in the defense supply chain, like we said, aerospace, automotive, any kind of supply chain is at risk there. Do we have any, I know we were talking really big picture, do we have any people that have kind of some getting started questions or kind of what the next steps are for them? If you maybe had a POAM, plan of action and milestones, basically a list of things you need to do. Anybody struggling with kind of next steps on that? Oh, nobody wanting to admit that. I bet we do have some people out there. So I think all our panelists have really encouraged people to get started on the cybersecurity. The time is now. I think we had conversations ahead of this program and planning that we didn't want CMMC 2.0 to be something that was perceived as a change. It's all part of the same process. DoD did listen to everybody and made some changes to make it more accommodating to small businesses, but it's not, any work you've done is good work, and it's all kind of leading in the same direction. I wonder if we could go around to our panelists and have everybody maybe give your hopes for everybody as they get off this call, maybe the action items that you think are really important if you're in the middle of this process, and what are the things that we should be really highlighting, most important takeaways from this program? John Stephens, you want to give that a shot, a start off?
Absolutely. So, like everyone on the panel has said, if you haven't started, you need to. But if you're in the process of, I think it was Jerry who brought up the fact that, the timeline, although maybe not as onerous as first thought, has accelerated in some cases. And so it's important to keep moving on those POAM items and to make progress. And if you're not sure how to do that, it's probably good to get help somewhere. I personally, when I saw the changes to CMMC 2.0, it looked to me like it was just a timing issue. They rolled it back to be not as aggressive for the burden on the DIB. If I had to make a prediction, I would say that, over time, they will probably ratchet that up to where at some point, maybe in the future, we all do still have to have that third-party attestation. So if you're waiting for the change to go away, I don't think that's a wise strategy. So this is just them adjusting the timeline. But I think increasingly, to what everybody's already said, it's just going to be part of doing business, and they're probably going to get more restrictive, more paying attention. And again, right down to upper level management being personally signing off on these. I think that's a good thing.
John, I think that's our takeaway. This is not going away. Awesome. Matt Katzer, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, yeah, John's actually right in what Jerry said. It's not going away. And, if you're getting started, do the 17 controls, but also when you actually go through this whole process, and the 17 controls is not onerous. It's like, do you have MFA on things? Well, you should. I mean, hopefully you're not using your same passwords in your bank accounts as you use your office systems and everything else, and majority of people do. There's things that you just need to do. But I also think that there's a message you go through when you look at information. is that information is your business asset. And as you look through how you want to manage things, it's about how you actually, who has the need to know and who has the need to basically, and how you're going to protect that information, how you can protect that business asset, because that's what it's about today. And go back a couple of years ago, the former FBI director said, you know, he said there's two types of companies in the world, those that have been breached and those that don't know that they've been breached. And you have to really internalize it, but basically, you know, you have to go back and think about, if you haven't started, start now, because you basically, it's about protecting what you invested in your business. And you don't want to have someone that come in and just take it all away from you, because that's what you do if you do nothing.
Right. Jerry, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, you know, it comes back to just being compliant doesn't mean you're secure, right? You got a checklist. That's what compliance is. And that's not what we're talking about here. What really is important is focus on security first. And if you look at the CMMC 2.0 version with NIST 171 and what control areas they've said that there will be no POAMs, those are security, a two-factor authentication, network protection. So my recommendation is you start and then make sure that you are secure. At the same time, you'll be becoming compliant. But start with security first, compliance second, if you had to prioritize. And then you talk about prioritization, you look at risk management. You've got a lot of things on your plate to worry about. So look at the impact if you don't do those things, and you know, determine the impacts and then prioritize. Take a risk-based approach, and then start working that list of things to get done. The benefit of that is those things that have the highest impact and risk, according to yourselves and the DoD, will give you the highest SPURS scores, which will get you more competitive and maybe win some more business along that journey, instead of getting all the way done before you get your first win. So take a risk-based approach, high impact, get secure first, follow up with compliance, and move forward, which is a general roadmap I see. That the other part is, because ransomware and data protection and the financial impact, when we get hacked with ransomware, we basically are shut down. We've lost our freedom to run our businesses. So it's a whole another game, right? So getting secure first is important, not only from a compliance standpoint, but really securing your assets, as we've talked about. So there's two things that we work with customers on, is kind of what we call the assessment. And there's two parts. That one is running a penetration and vulnerability test of what they have in their environments to see if there's already bad stuff in there and to close those holes, so to help mitigate from future stuff. But it's like buying a car. Unless you have a mechanic look at your engine, you don't know what you're getting or what you have. So you want to do that as part of your assessment. So get somebody to run a pen test and vulnerability on you, so you really know your current state, and then look at how you manage your data across your people, process, and technologies, and do your gap assessment, and then prioritize those gaps based on risk and impact as you move through your regulatory compliance journey. So I would say that's really important from a best way to manage the journey is taking a risk-based approach. The other thing that is starting to happen, I'll just mention this, we haven't talked about it, is third-party liability. So in terms of evaluating risk, if you said, if we had our financial systems locked down and we couldn't deliver to our customers, suddenly those customers can't do their business, right? You've got a third-party impact to them. And there is legislation right now saying, hey, if there's third-party liability because you haven't done your cybersecurity due care, there could be tort damages back to you as the person that didn't do their due care. We're seeing that in a couple lawsuits right now, one in a hospital where it was a patient came in that needed help immediately, but the hospital system was locked down from ransomware, so they couldn't check them in, they couldn't do the benefits check, all that sort of thing, and that person died. So the ransomware resulted in a death. And so that family now is going back and suing the hospital because they weren't taking care of their customers' information or their business. And now there could be tort liability for that third-party risk. So that's a very new trend that's really going to come alive in the next year with all the things. And Colonial Pipeline's one that's another lawsuit that's underway with its suppliers that received their gas and customers. They were suddenly blocked out for a period of time. And now they want money back because Colonial didn't do their job. And when software, due care is something that it can fall into tort law. It's something that you're responsible as a prime or supplier. So keep an eye on that. But the real reason I point that out is that if you're not doing it, it could add additional pressure of you not getting secure and compliant, demonstrating due care for the court of law, and protect yourself from third-party liability. So that was just another nuance of why it's important that you do this. It's that new trend, and take a look out there and see what you see around that. And that'll be another reason to raise up the importance of cybersecurity and due care, meeting NIST 171 as your standard baseline, because that's a good defensible position in the court of law if some of your suppliers or customers sue you because you got breached and you had ransomware, and it's like, I did everything I could. These guys were just too smart. Well, the court would said we did everything you could, so you won't be liable for third party. But if you didn't, well, you were negligent, so you need to pay that guy. So it's really important growing area that's going to change the dynamics of cybersecurity investments in the future. So that was all I wanted to say.
Right. Dave Miller, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, yeah, very informative, folks. Thank you to each one of the panel members. From our standpoint, much of what we're doing for our clients is based on defense manufacturing. And really the core that we're seeing is they are responding to DFARS requirements being in their contracts. And so as a cybersecurity company, we are wholly and completely dedicated to protecting our clients' data and having that philosophy throughout the overall industry. However, businesses want their answers now. They want to know that they can get an assessment, enter in their SPURS score, and maintain their contract. And so focusing on going through that process so that you can maintain your contracts is probably one of the most important aspects that we are receiving from our clients. They're doing roadmap for them, doing a complete assessment of where they are regarding NIST 800-171. That gives them a baseline. They can enter in their SPURS score, and they can therefore continue on. So being stopped in that process is a very real concern for a lot of companies. So that seems to be the sort of the bottom line consideration.
Right. Thank you all. Really appreciate the information that you're sharing. And I'm going to encourage everyone to chat their contact information. I'm sure we'll have a lot of follow-up questions. As our speaker earlier today, Vasco said from Boise State about cyber safety, I think one really neat fact that we got from a lot of the work that Impact Washington was doing on, I think it was a group of 35 companies that went through the cybersecurity process. 60%, 65%, I think it was, improved another process along the way. So this is not something that needs to be separate from all your other business processes, your other safety processes. This is all kind of holistic and baked into everything you're doing. So it's a good time to start wherever you're at. Start taking that next step, right? I'm going to just reiterate the recordings of past programs that we will have. These are all on Impact Washington's YouTube site. So please, I encourage you all to take a look at these programs. Following the event today, we will send out a quick survey. We'd love your feedback on the program, future subjects you'd like to see. We'll also have a link to the slide decks from today, as well as a recording of today's program. Damon, do you have anything, last words for everybody here?
Just want to reiterate, follow up, encourage everyone, take that next step. I know a lot of the conversation was at a high level today, but it really is, for those manufacturers out there, you're already doing a lot of these things. You're implementing ISO, you're implementing Lean. If you're doing that, you can integrate, you can follow those kind of processes to implement. cybersecurity in your company as well, and get the benefits that everyone here has shared today. So, and we'd love to help. So reach out.
Right. I'll leave the Zoom room open here for a little bit. I do encourage you to download your chat. There's instructions there. Just click on as if you were going to write a chat, and there'll be 3 little dots to the side. Click on those and it'll let you download that, so you have all the links that were provided today. That does conclude today's program, but keep charging forward on your cybersecurity. We appreciate everybody joining us here today, and thank you all for supporting this program.